The illusion of addressing plastic pollution.
Even if we were to stop plastic production today, even if the last plastic bottle we discard today, it's going to last there in our oceans for at least 400 plus years. And then the journey of micro nanoplastic begins. And so we have a poster in our cafeteria where we say that, you may not see your grandkids or great-great-great-grandkids, but I will, saying the plastic bottle. And I think that's true.
If we look at the scale of plastic pollution in the oceans, it becomes clear that a complete cleanup can take millennia. Today, the world ocean contains about 200 million tons of plastic waste. Meanwhile, every year, around 20,000 tons are extracted. That's less than 0.01%, a negligible fraction compared to the existing volume. At this rate, fully cleaning the ocean would take about 10,000 years. And that's only if we stopped all plastic entering the ocean starting today.
Plastics are entering the environment currently at a rate that far exceeds our capacity to remove it from the environment or to mediate the wastes.
Let's assume humanity achieves a technological breakthrough, invests enormous resources, and increases cleanup efficiency 5-fold. Even then, the process would still take around 2,000 years. In reality, we cannot cope even with the current annual influx of pollution, let alone eliminate the consequences of what has been accumulating for decades. Not only are we unable to remove all the plastic that has built up in the biosphere, but attempting to do so could also endanger living organisms.
There are some organization initiatives, they are trying to collect the waste, accumulate that garbage patches, that locations. They are also collecting neustone, the organisms living just 15 centimeters of the first layer of top ocean. So those organisms, using that, those artificial material as a, hunting ground, nesting ground, feeding ground, or, they are laying egg on those plastics. So when you remove all these plastics, you also remove all those organisms. So because removal itself also another problem. So once plastics get in the environment, there is no proper and harmless way of removing these plastics from those environments.
Moreover, a significant portion of plastics has already broken down into micro and nanoparticles that now lie on the seabed, drift through the water column, have entered the bodies of marine organisms, and become part of the global cycle of matter. These particles cannot be captured with nets or collected manually. This means that simple mechanical removal of plastics from the environment, even under the most optimistic scenario, will not solve the problem. We are no longer dealing with debris that can simply be picked up, but with nanoparticles carrying an electrostatic charge. This nanomaterial has already become embedded in every living thing on the planet. And even if we succeeded in removing every plastic bottle and every wrapper from the ocean, one question would still remain. What happens next? We still do not have a safe method for disposing of the mountains of plastic waste we would collect.
There's mismanaged waste on land all around the planet in informal dump sites. Some waste has been incinerated, some of it commercially in incinerators that may or may not have appropriate screens and filters to collect associated chemicals that might be released. But of course, a lot is burned in open dirt burning scenarios in countries that are not wealthy enough to own the appropriate waste management facilities to deal with the plastic waste that is exported to them by other nations. And then some of it, of course, will have gone into so-called recognized waste management systems, but which might include burying it beneath the ground in landfill, where, of course, it could return to present problems in the future, or indeed incinerating it in commercial incinerators. But depending on the quality of incinerator, of course, there's concerns about the emissions from those incinerators.
Burning plastics, whether in backyard fires or industrial incinerators, does not solve the problem. It merely transforms them into a more dangerous form. When heated or burned, large plastic items break down into micro and nanoplastics that disperse into the air, settle onto surfaces, and enter water and soil with precipitation. The apparent disappearance of plastic in flames is an illusion. Burning simply accelerates the fragmentation of plastic into the tiniest particles many times over, into the very micro and nanoplastics that pose the greatest danger to human health. And it is precisely these electrostatically charged particles that can penetrate deep into the body, including the brain and other cells, where they trigger a wide range of diseases.
When you put plastic in a recycling facility, at first they will shred big plastic to generate flakes and small pieces of plastics, and then during that shredding, they also use for washing. They have to wash to remove some unwanted material on plastics. During that washing, material lose the huge percentage of the total mass. So those lost material will go to the wastewater stream. Recycling activities, practices, feeding microplastic pollution in the waterways. A simple and regular recycling facility can generate billions microplastics and then release into the either wastewater stream or waterway.
And unfortunately, what I see with some of the things that are claimed to be a solution is that they're not necessarily properly tried or tested before they're put into the market, and there may then be potential for unintended consequences.
Pyrolysis. At first glance, it looks like a technological miracle. We take plastic waste, heat it to 800 degrees Celsius without oxygen, and obtain fuel. Instead of piles of garbage, we get gas, liquid, and a small carbon residue. Sounds promising, doesn't it? But this technology has a flip side, an invisible and far more dangerous one. During high-temperature decomposition, plastic does not simply disappear. Pyrolysis is accompanied by emissions of dioxins and furans, some of the most toxic substances on the planet. They are carcinogenic, disrupt the endocrine system, and can accumulate in human tissues. They are hazardous even at low concentrations. Even if you manage to obtain 600 liters of liquid fuel from 1 ton of plastics, the price of such fuel is a threat to human health and life.
By relying on such disposal methods, we're only accelerating the transformation of plastics into an invisible, yet far more dangerous form. Let me remind you that the amount of micro and nanoplastics present in the ocean alone is already more than enough to destroy our entire biospheres, including the humankind 3 times over. Meanwhile, microplastics continue to disintegrate, generating vast amounts of nanoplastics. Recall Dr. Kenner's example. A single microplastic particle can fragment into billions of nanoparticles. And with countless microplastics already present everywhere, constantly breaking down into even smaller fragments, this process is driving the destruction of humanity and of everything around us. Today, many people have started turning this crisis into business, inventing all sorts of methods that supposedly remove microplastic from the body. And people are willing to pay large sums for these treatments. But the real question is, do they actually work?
False hope. Today, in healthcare and even in some scientific circles, there's growing discussion about alleged methods to cleanse the human body of microplastics. A variety of approaches are being promoted, including plasmapheresis, hemosorption, mechanical filtration devices, dietary adsorbents, and so-called natural supplements claiming to detoxify the body. At first glance, it all sounds reasonable. If there's something toxic in the body, it should be removed. But the truth is that these methods don't actually solve the problem.
I don't think any scientifically proven techniques exist to filter out the micro nanoplastic from the blood. It gets deposited in the organs themselves, which is not really something you can filter out by sending the blood to some filtration machine.
Nanoplastics have already penetrated inside human cells. They are not just circulating in the bloodstream like an unwelcome guest you can simply escort out. They have become part of the body's internal environment. Yes, we can cleanse the blood with sorbents or filter plasma. But how effective can such procedures truly be?
we started this plastic production and the usage of these materials, which have a lot of, positive effects. That we in the hospital, I just, when I look around in my, daily work environment, I guess that 80% of everything I touch in the hospital is of plastic, starting with my gloves.
And probably 80-90% of the machine itself is made of the plastic. And that's a very important point for healthcare.
What's more, the very solutions used for blood purification procedures also contain plastics.
When you get sick, you are going to a hospital, you probably will go to the hospital for treatment, and then they will give you some solutions, some infusions, like they will put something inside your vein, and then they transfer some liquids from plastic package to your blood system. So those intravenous solutions has at least 62 microplastic particles per liter. So this is direct transfer exposure microplastic to human system, blood system.
So we end up with a paradox. We are using plastics to try to eliminate the consequences of plastics. Such procedures may indeed reduce the overall toxic load, but they don't address the core issue. They don't extract plastic from cells, don't neutralize its electrostatic charge, don't restore disrupted signaling pathways, and don't protect the brain, immune system, or mitochondria. An individual has every right to try such methods. It is their personal choice, but it's important not to harbor illusions. Those procedures will not restore lost health. Moreover, plastic isn't just a material used for packaging and household goods. It is the backbone of modern industry, healthcare, transportation, electronics, construction, and even space technology.
It's the second most common material on Earth after concrete, so it's extremely widespread.
I think going forward, it's going to be really important that we retain the important uses of plastic, because plastics are not here the enemy. It's not a treaty about not producing plastics. It's a treaty about ending plastic pollution, not ending the production of plastics. And plastics have the potential to bring clear societal benefit.
That is why the main goal today isn't to stop plastic production, but to find ways to reduce the impact of micro and nanoplastics on human health and the environment.
Creating false hope is extremely dangerous. It arises from a misunderstanding of reality and from basic ignorance. We must remember that the most dangerous plastic particles are those small enough to penetrate our cells. And once micro and nanoplastics enter our cells, they cannot be filtered out or removed. They become part of the body and slowly destroy us from within. The most serious problem is that we have no control over how much of this material enters us. Nanoplastics can even penetrate the skin, for example, when we swim in the sea or lie in the sun. And what can we do about nanoplastics that, once inhaled, travel directly to the brain and begin destroying neurons? Nanoplastics are among the most dangerous substances for the biosphere and for all life, including humanity. Yet, abandoning plastics altogether will be senseless because doing so would cause enormous global losses. Synthetic polymers, including plastics, form the backbone of countless modern industries, from medicine and nanotechnology to flexible electronics, neuromorphic hardware for AI, aerospace structures, automotive manufacturing, and construction. Their versatility, ease of shaping and processing, compatibility with other nanomaterials, and scalability have made them the foundation of our modern progress. The solution, therefore, is not to eliminate plastics, but to ensure that they no longer threaten life. And the real path forward begins with understanding precisely what makes nanoplastics so dangerous.